All right, guys, I'm going to read. Welcome. Welcome, friends, supporters, and participants to in the minor sport, media, and culture. I'm Annie Coleman, the director of the minor, and we are SMAC. We are the love child of FTT, American Studies, and the journalism program, and we study the people and the power behind the image. And our mission is to think critically about the politics of representation in sport, and through our work in the academy, the industry, and the community to promote social justice and equal access to sports. Today is a thanks to and a celebration of the students, faculty, staff, and alumni who are creating community across campus and across the country in support of SMAC and its mission. Before we get going, I'd like to take just a quick moment to orient ourselves in place and time. We are gathered in a place with a rich and layered history. We're in the Hesburgh Library on the campus of the University of Notre Dame, not far from the burial ground called Cedar Grove, all of which are on the traditional homelands of Native peoples, including the Haudenosaunee, Miami, Peoria, and especially the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi, a sovereign nation whose tribal government is just up the road in Dowagiac, Michigan. Part of Notre Dame's mission is to create a sense of human solidarity and concern for the common good that will bear fruit as learning becomes service to justice. We're excited to work with Native people at Notre Dame and the Pokagon Band as we consider the cultural politics of sport in the interest of health, equal access, and social justice. Notre Dame Lacrosse recognized Indigenous students, alumni, faculty, and staff at 2 recent games, which was great, and we hope to offer some SMAC programming related to Native sports and games regularly. We're situated here today chronologically as well as geographically. This week is Earth Week, and Saturday marks the 54th celebration of Earth Day. So let's do what we can this week and every week to care for our common home, to promote not just equal access to sports, but also equal access to clean air, water, food, and fuel. So now let's turn to some highlights. And there are programs on those tables too. If you didn't get one, feel free to jump up and grab one so that you can tell where we're going. Some highlights for the first year. There we go. What an amazing start. What an amazing first year. SMAC was active in the academy, in the industry, in the community. Professor Becker and Walden visited Vegas and gave a talk on the Shamrock series, which was incredibly well received. We had all the hosts of the Burn It All Down podcast, the feminist sports podcast you need, came to campus and did a live podcast from DeBartolo Performing Arts Center, which was amazing. We had a whole series of alumni SMAC chats. Alumni, whenever you're on campus, let me know. Some of you have been in these chats. Let me know. We'll get some students together and you can talk to each other about career opportunities and what have you. We had Frank Garuti, a scholar from Columbia, come and talk about his new book on stadiums. And we also co-sponsored an amazing panel discussion with the Gender Relations Center about women in sports. We had a seminar on sports for the Notre Dame Environmental Change Initiative through my class. That was really exciting. We had an expert on sports and sustainability come talk. And one of the most exciting projects that I'm really happy that SMAC can support is the Foundry Field Project, which is engaging our community around issues of race and representation and access through historical research, design activism, community activation, and sport. If any of you have read the recent cover story in Notre Dame Magazine, that's awesome. I would encourage you to check it out if you haven't. It's written by our own Nick Manieri right here in the corner. Yeah. This project, the Foundry Field Project, will bring a new publicly accessible baseball field to South Bend's urban core. The field will honor the Foundry Giants, an all-Black baseball team that played against white teams in the Studebaker Industrial League 20 years before Jackie Robinson integrated pro baseball. The team included several community leaders, including South Bend's first Black policeman, Dusty Riddle. This collaborative project was initiated by the Sappy Moffett Field Foundation in 2019. This past year, Dr. Katie Walden's course, Baseball in America, began historical research in the Foundry Giants. This research has guided students from Clinton Carlson's Community Activated Design course, working to connect youth from Reilly High School and the Boys and Girls Clubs to this history. The Center for Social Concerns has supported the project, inviting Thomas Detour Evans as our first visiting artist. Detour will paint a mural depicting the Foundry Giants this spring, and there's a groundbreaking celebration planned for May 12th, so keep an eye out for that. We'll put it on our SMAC events page, but I'm sure there's other places you can find it. So that's just a highlight of the programming this year. I'd like to invite our internship coordinator, Dr. Christine Becker, to come up and talk with you just for a few minutes about the internships that our students have had. This is an incredibly important part of the SMAC minor. Students can count up to 3 credits of internship experience towards their minor, and Chris has been working with folks in lots of different areas. So please welcome Professor Becker.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. My home department is film, television, and theater, but as soon as I heard there was even a vague talk of something like a sport minor, I immediately raised my hand and said, please let me be involved with it. So I'm really gracious for Annie bringing FTT on board and allowing me to carry over my internship coordinator duties that I do for FTT over into SMAC. So my title is internship coordinator. I'm not internship locator, by which I mean the students have to find the internships, right? And so it's really to our students' credit that they find such really amazing opportunities. So first of all, for the students out there, if you're SMAC or even SMAC adjacent and you need help, you recognize, of course, the importance of getting internships for anyone who wants to work in the industry. It's about what do you know how to do and who do you know? And internships are a really key way to learn those skills. And so as I said, I'm not an internship locator, but I can help guide you to resources that where you can identify where internships are. And then for anyone here who works at a company that perhaps has interns, I'm very interested in hearing about opportunities that you might have or things that you even know about. I have a newsletter I send out to let students know about internship opportunities. So even if you've heard things at other companies you want our students to know about, we want to know that. And I just picked out some logos of places where students have had internships over the past few years and kind of a representative selection. So we have, first of all, a couple of teams, a lacrosse team here and a minor league baseball team. So we have students go there, particularly students who want to be broadcasters. This is a really great summer experience for them to get. We've got a few companies here, Pro Football Focus, NBC Sports, and 3 Strand Sports and Entertainment. So again, students who are doing research or social media management, things like that. They can get work in companies in the sports entertainment industry. And then finally, quite close to home, we got Notre Dame Studios, and within that, Fighting Irish Media. And so students who want experience on campus during the semester or who are sticking around during summer. And as I think the students know, and if you're not from around here might not know, all of the sports, all the major sports have production coverage. So there's students who do who do camera work or do graphics or do broadcasting. And so every sport's got some form where students can get involved with that. And then the last one was a podcast, a Notre Dame, an Irish podcast that a student did an internship there as well. So it's a huge range of things we can do. And this is, I'll close by saying this is one of the things I find most exciting about this minor. I don't think anything like this exists on any campus. There's sports management, there's sports broadcasting, there's journalism, but the kind of things that we bring together in this minor is really incredible. And I hope that for internships as well, any student who has any kind of interest in learning anything about sports, we can help find you a home in an internship. So let me know if you either need an internship or if you have internship information. I'm the one to check with. Thank you.
Yay. And I think you'll see once we get the rotating slides going on during the socializing part, you'll see our students are already taking advantage of this and so many more cool things. Next up, in terms of our highlights, I'd like to introduce our sports archivist and the curator of our Joyce Sports Research Collection. This collection of archival materials that we have at Notre Dame is really amazing. It's national, if not internationally known. So one of the things I'd like to do with the minor is get our students in there using it, doing capstone projects, research papers. Our students are putting them to great use with the help of Greg Bond And so I'd like him to come up and just speak for a few minutes about these collections. While he comes up, I'll say, one of the events that I hope to plan in the future is a conference here at Notre Dame for sports scholars who want to be using these collections and hear about them more so that we can put ourselves on the map in terms of undergraduate programming, but also sports studies research. So great, thanks.
Thank you, Professor Coleman. On behalf of Hesburgh Libraries, could not be more pleased to welcome the Sport, Media, and Culture minor here. We're so happy to have you in Hesburgh Libraries. Great to be hosting the first annual SMAC Fest, hopefully the first of many. As Dr. Becker said, that one of the great things about SMAC is it brings different types of things together, including the amazing historical collections here at Hesburgh Libraries. My job in only 5 minutes is to try to introduce you to these fantastic, unique, really world-class historical collections that are available to you. Everyone in this room can look at them, the historical collections in Hesburgh Libraries. We'll only be able to scratch the surface on really a whirlwind tour. I'll give you an example of the type of resources you can use. It's been great working with SMAC faculty and students, looking forward to doing in the future. I'll start today talking about the collections on the first floor below us on Hesburgh Library in the Department of Rare Books and Special Collections, which houses the Joyce Sports Research Collection that Professor Coleman talked about. It's really one of the largest sports history research collections in the world, and we're so lucky to have it here at Notre Dame. One of the real strengths of the Joyce Sports Research Collection is printed material about sports. We have hundreds of thousands of media guides, programs, catalogs, annual guidebooks, Spalding guides, rule books, instructional manuals, lots of sports periodicals like magazine journals, newspapers. One of my recent favorites lately has been Women's Sports Magazine, founded by tennis star Billie Jean King in the early 1970s. It is really one of the first popular magazines dedicated to women in sports, talked about all sorts of women in athletics, including this fantastic article from the August 1974, the 3rd issue of the magazine, talking about women in self-defense with a fantastic title of How to Pick Up Men and Throw Them Against the Wall. Fantastic image of the man dressed as the devil with very specific advice on how to fight back. The Joyce Sports Research Collection also has hundreds of manuscript and archival collections. Now, a manuscript collection contains those types of things that weren't necessarily intended to be published. Think about things like letters, correspondence, personal papers, financial records, business records, diaries, anything you might not find on a library shelf. One of our most heavily used manuscript collections is really unique. It's the Jack Pfeffer Professional Wrestling Collection. Really, it's the only publicly accessible wrestling manuscript collection in the country. Jack Pfeffer was a wrestling promoter from the 1930s and 1960s, which straddles that time period when wrestling goes from a mostly straight athletic endeavor to the scripted, theatrical, vaudevillian thing we know and love or know and hate today. It's a fantastic collection. People use it to answer all sorts of questions about race and gender and advertising. Things like, what is a sport? What qualifies as a sport? And other questions like, have you seen Alibaba? Is he a man? Is he a beast? To be determined, I think. I've not investigated that particular question. All sorts of formats of materials to look at in the Joyce Sports Research Collection, including things like photo albums, scrapbooks put together by regular people about their sporting experiences. This is a relatively new edition. It's a fantastic 1947 scrapbook from the Corona Rolling Devils, based out of a VA hospital in California in 1947. They were one of the first popular, successful, well-known wheelchair basketball teams in the country and brought a lot of publicity to the sport of wheelchair basketball and really the idea of accessible sports, that everyone could and should play sports. Another type of source you can look at the Joyce Sports Research Collection. Now, a lot of people tend to think that only written material or printed material or text-based material can be a historical source, can be a primary source. And that is definitely not true, we know as historians and archivists. All types of objects, items, artifacts can tell a story, can be a primary source, including this fantastic wooden and cloth scroll from 1819 that stretches out to 14 feet in length that tells the story of boxing fans in London going to a prize fight outside the city. It's a really interesting story told by a different type of source. So always be thinking about what your source can be. Different types of objects can tell a story. Now that material is just downstairs in Rare Book Special Collections. On the 6th floor of this building, the University of Notre Dame Archives is the official repository for all records by the University of Notre Dame, which, as you might imagine, includes lots of sports and athletics material. including the Newt Rockne Era Athletic Department, which really is one of the best manuscript collections that charts the rise of college sports as a national phenomenon, including these fantastic telegrams between Babe Ruth and Newt Rockne in 1928. Babe Ruth asked Newt Rockne for 10 good tickets for him and Lou Gehrig for the upcoming Notre Dame Army game at Yankee Stadium. Newt Rockne, always a good businessman, writes back and get you the tickets. They're $4 a piece. So Newt Rockne is not even comping Babe Ruth. And speaking of Rockne as a businessman, he was not above capitalizing on his fame in the country in the 1920s. And again, how artifacts can tell a story. This is a great artifact we recently acquired, the 1931 official Newt K. Rockne football board game, which I think tells a great story about college sports and merchandising, commercialism, licensing. This stuff's not new. This has been happening since college sports has been around. So another example of, I think, objects can tell a story. We're also always actively collecting, trying to tell a more comprehensive story about history of Notre Dame. One of our most recent collections is the Mary Clemency collection. She was the captain of the first two club basketball teams, women club basketball teams in 1975, 1976. When women arrived in full education in 1972, right away, they wanted to play sports. They tried to play sports, and they had to convince and argue with indifferent, if not hostile administrators, athletic administrators who couldn't wrap their heads around women college athletes. They persevered, established the women's sports department at Notre Dame that is, as we know, blossomed into national champions in many sports. And in conclusion, I know I'm a little bit long and I apologize. Please come use our collections. The only reason we acquire this stuff, collect this stuff, describe this stuff, arrange this stuff, maintain this stuff is for people like you to use it, learn from it, tell a story. Rare Book Special Collections, University Archives, both open 9:30 to 4:30 Monday to Friday. Send me an email, gbond2@nd.edu, questions, anything I can help you with. I couldn't resist my most recent acquisition. I had to throw in a picture here, a vintage Jackie Robinson doll from 1950. So follow Jackie Robinson advice and please come visit our collections. They want to be used and you can do great stuff with them.
All right, so anybody want snacks? There's brownies, cupcakes, and vegetables. You want vegetables? Iced tea, lemonade. Okay, we are at the best part of the program. Our program is amazing today, but next up is our senior capstone projects. So every SMAC minor is required to do two things. Well, three, I guess. They have to take one required class, which is mine. I'm a little selfish about that. They have to take some other coursework. They can do some internships. They all have to do a 1-credit capstone project, which is essentially an independent project. The requirements are that the project is worth 1 credit hour, so they do that amount of work. And that project should synthesize, reflect upon, or build from the students' work within the SMAC minor. So that can relate to their major, their career interests, any minors that they have. And the other requirement is that it needs to be somehow public facing. So if we're going to spend a lot of time learning about the cultural politics of representation, the capstone is the moment to practice those cultural politics of representation. We have 3 capstone projects to be presented tonight. It's our inaugural group and I could not be more proud. They're a great example of the variety of projects students can do. I'm going to ask them to come up in rapid succession, and then we'll have a brief Q&A after the third one, okay? So Reilly Gray is first. Reilly, do you want to come on up? I've got your slides all set. And then so we can just do that. Yeah, you good? Or do you want me to do it?
I can do it.
Yeah, go for it.
Thanks so
Okay,
much.
I'll sit over here.
So hey everyone, so the name of my capstone project is Beyond the Sidelines, Navigating Across Diversity Struggles and Pursuing a More Inclusive Future. So just how I came upon this topic. So like Professor Coleman kind of talked about and showed in my slide, I currently play for the men's lacrosse team here, and I've been playing lacrosse since whenever I can remember. My dad played in high school and then he played at college at the University of Catholic, so I've had a stick in my hand ever since I can really remember. So it's been a big part of my life, my entire life, and continues to be a big part of my life every day. And then additionally, I'm the oldest of 5 kids. You can see a photo of my family up here from this summer. And my youngest brother, Nate, in the middle with the striped Barcelona jersey, is adopted from Guinea-Bissau, and he's Black. and he loves lacrosse. He watches all of my games, and I want lacrosse to be a sport where he grows up that he feels represented in and is proud to play. So then just a brief history of the sport. Like now the sport is known, has a reputation of being like a white elitist upper class sport, but it was actually the first sport in North America, and it's indigenous North America. It was founded by the Native Americans as early as the 12th century. But it was a lot different than the sport we see today. Back then, they played with hundreds and sometimes even thousands of people, and the games took place from sun up to sundown and were often 2 to 3 days long. It wasn't until 1856 a man named William Beers codified the sport by shortening the fields, having proper equipment that we know today, and shortening the length. So yeah, and then it wasn't until the 1880s where it eventually got this reputation that it has today, and that was when Ivy League schools eventually saw this sport as a way for white upper class people to show their privilege and status, and that is when it took on the reputation that it still unfortunately persists the sport today. So then I got to talk to a lot of people about how lacrosse is failing to become diverse racially and socioeconomically, and these were 3 interviews that really stood out to me. The first person I got to talk to was Kyle Harrison. Getting to speak to Kyle was kind of a dream come true for me. He played pro lacrosse for I think 17 years, and in 2005 he won the Twarton Lacrosse Award, which is given out to, it's basically the Heisman of college lacrosse. And he was the only Black player to win it ever, and he still holds that today. And the main thing we talked about was that for a lot of Black kids growing up, there just aren't as many Black pro or high level players that Black kids can see themselves in. He talked about his unique experience. His dad actually played at the first HBCU school to offer lacrosse at Morgan State, so this wasn't an issue for him, but he talked about how it deterred a lot of friends he had from playing the sport. Another pro Black lacrosse player I got to talk to was Jules Heningberg. Jules Heningberg currently plays in the PLL, which is the top professional lacrosse league for the Redwoods. He was a 2-time All-American at Rutgers. And we talked about a lot of stuff also, but the main thing I got from my conversation with him was that he thought equipment was the main thing holding lacrosse back from being socioeconomically and racially diverse. He referenced what the NFL did with Pop Warner, with working with local communities to subsidize equipment, because lacrosse equipment can be over $500 once you add up stick, helmet, elbow pads, gloves, shoulder pads. But football equipment is comparable, but obviously it has a much more diverse socioeconomic and racial demographic because it doesn't cost an arm and a leg to play Pop Warner football like it often does to play youth lacrosse. And then lastly, I was able to talk to Kevin Corrigan, who's been around lacrosse ever since he was a kid. He played at the University of Virginia and is the longest tenured Division I coach currently, serving as his 35th season as Notre Dame's head lacrosse coach. We also talked about a lot of things, but the main thing I wanted to learn from him was some insight on recruiting, since he's been in this system for a long time. And I asked him if he thought this current system disadvantages lower socioeconomic classes, and he responded that he thinks it certainly does. And then he provided me with 3 reasons why he thinks it does. The first reason he cited was just the prices of these club teams that it costs to play for, to be seen by many of the coaches. Club teams can cost thousands of dollars, and increasingly there's a tryout fee for these teams that can be as much as $100. So that just deters obviously a lot of poor families. Another reason was just the travel fees. These tournaments take place all over the country, and you're paying on your own dime to go to them. So just from cars to hotels to even flights. You mentioned that as one big reason. Then the last one that I thought was really insightful, he talked about just the fact that the main recruiting season for lacrosse takes place during the summer. So if you can't really have a summer job and still get recruited, he kind of talked about, and this is obviously a big impediment to a lot of families that need that extra source of income during the summer. And then just lastly, some of the kind of conclusions I came to, I think the main thing I came to is that there's not one problem plaguing lacrosse right now, making it less accessible to lower socioeconomic and different and diverse racial groups, but a plethora of them. I think the main points were highlighted by those 3 men. And then just the people who I'd want to read my capstone and see it. First would be just minority youth, and to be able to see that there are role models they can look up to, not even just great players like Jules and Kyle, but also great guys who are using their platform to try to promote a more diverse sport. And then just lastly, NCAA officials and lacrosse program athletic directors, just to see that through hopefully Coach Corrigan, what he said, that the current recruiting system is kind of broken in a sense where it clearly and obviously disadvantages poor people. And then just lastly, club lacrosse directors who run these teams, such as Long Island Express or Team 91, that have these high prices for kids to get seen at, just that hopefully they can see this and potentially see that if they really want the sport to grow and they're genuine about it, that they could potentially lower prices and or have some financial aid system of sorts. I just want to give a special shout out to Professor Jason Kelly for helping me out for this project. He was a huge help. Couldn't have done it without him. And then just Professor Annie Coleman for setting all this up. And that's my capstone. Thanks so much.
All right, so you can think of questions that you want to ask our capstone authors while they take a seat, and I'll ask our second one, Kelly Hanratty, to come up.
All right, thank you, Professor Coleman. So my capstone project actually started in Professor Coleman's Sports and American Culture class last semester, where I wrote a paper exploring the topic of popular media representation of female golfers in the late 19th and early 20th century. But there was something in me that wanted to go a step further and explore what that kind of representation looks like in popular media today. So when I was brainstorming different capstone ideas, I thought that this was the perfect opportunity to take the time to dive into that topic. And from that came my capstone paper, which is an exploration of the representation of female golfers in popular media in the late 19th and early 20th century versus today in 2023. So like I said, my paper starts in the late 19th and early 20th century, and this is when women's participation in sports was becoming more socially acceptable, although not without societal reinforcement of gender stereotypes. For example, the creation of the safety bicycle in the 1890s gave women a newfound freedom, but not without many caveats in place to keep these different gender definitions intact, like where they could go and how they could dress while riding these bikes. And at the same time, golf was becoming, or women were allowed to play golf, but with many provisions still in place to control how they participated in the sport. And all of this was communicated to them through popular media of the time. Articles in magazines like Harper's Bazaar and Ladies' Home Journal served many different purposes. For one, they identified different concrete benefits of women playing golf, including health benefits, saying that it'll help them maintain their youth and their beauty. They also gave different tips on how women could improve their golf game, including different illustrations on how to properly swing a club, like you can see here. And then lastly, they told women the different gendered expectations that they had on the course, including that they were there to keep men in check, making sure that they were still acting like gentlemen, even though they were playing a sport that could be particularly frustrating at times. So altogether, the popular media's discourse on women's golf in the late 19th and early 20th centuries served as a means of societal control that reinforced gender norms and expectations by dictating the appropriate manner in which women should participate in golf. Now, fast forward to 2023, and a lot has changed. The LPGA was created in 1950, Title IX was passed in 1972, and print isn't the biggest form of popular media anymore, television is. So what does popular media coverage of professional female golfers look like today? For this particular paper, I looked at the Golf Channel's coverage of the LPGA Tour in 2022. And the first thing that I found is that popular media coverage of these golfers today views them more as athletes. As you can see here, there's highlights posted from each round of play after each LPGA Tour event. Additionally, we also see different breaking news coverage when the #1 player in the world, for example, is out for the week. But we also see coverage that continues to highlight the femininity of these golfers. For example, features on what it's like to be pregnant as a professional female golfer. Another example, what it's like, or the Golf Channel did a feature last year on how many LPGA Tour pros handle being a mother and also being a professional golfer. And I by no means think that this is a dig at these women or that there was any ill will behind these television segments. But for that same time period that I examined, there were no television segments produced about male professional golfers balancing fatherhood and the same full-time job that these women have. So while coverage of professional female golfers on television has evolved to recognize them more as athletes, there remains a need for continued improvement in the way popular media represents women in golf in order to make coverage equal to men's. And events like the Grant Thornton Invitational present a promising step forward in promoting gender equality in golf by offering equal visibility and hopefully equal media coverage for male and female golfers. So the Grant Thornton Invitational will take place for the first time this December, and it's a co-sanctioned tournament between the PGA Tour and the LPGA Tour, where all of these players will be competing for equal prize money and hopefully getting equal visibility. With that being said, I'm on the social media team for the PGA Tour and will be a part of the group covering this tournament. So I'm very excited to be able to be a part of creating and posting content that'll hopefully reflect equal coverage of both the men and women playing in this tournament, and hopefully can set a precedent for the same kind of coverage into the future. Thank you.
I'm so proud. I can't even tell you. All right. Paddy Burns is our last capstone presenter, and he's not graduating this spring, but he will be graduating in December for reasons you could, well, because of his soccer career is all I'm going to say. I'll take it away.
Thanks, Professor Coleman. And thanks everyone for being here today. My name is Paddy Burns and I'm from Northern Ireland. So my capstone project title is the 21st Century Model for College Soccer. Before I dive into the details, I just wanted to say a special thank you to my advisor, Beth Hunter. Beth has so much knowledge with regards to the college soccer world and facilitated a lot of my research and put me in touch with some very important people who I was able to interview. So thank you to Beth. So what is the 21st Century Model and how does it relate to the SMAC minor? Over the course of probably the past decade, there has been a massive push in college soccer to make it a fall and spring sport where we would play competitively all year round. Right now, we just play in the fall. So if you look at that top bar, it kind of illustrates it well. We play 18 of our games in the fall, and then we play our national championship tournament. And then we have the whole springtime where we have 5 exhibition games, but it's an off season. We aren't playing competitively. The 21st Century Model would restructure the college season. So we would play 12 regular season games in the fall, a further 8 in the spring, and then we would play our national championships in May time. So my team and I at Notre Dame strongly stand against the 21st Century Model. We believe that we must stay as just a fall sport for reasons that I will get into. One reason is that the MLS draft for players to go and play professionally is in January time. So essentially, if the 21st Century Model passed, we would play 12 games in the fall. We would lose our best players in January, and then we would have to play with a totally different team in spring and also play our national championship with a team that is depleted because we lost our players to the pros. I think it relates to the SMAC minor in a lot of ways. Proponents of the 21st Century Model, as I'll show, pretty much try to silence anyone that speaks out against it. They circle you as being the enemy and being against the growth of college soccer if you don't agree with this model. And so I very much want to reinforce to everyone who this model will negatively impact that it is okay to stand against the model, and you're probably right. So some of the research that I did to kind of get a real gauge on the amount of arguments that exist here, I met with a lot of coaches, not just within men's soccer and women's soccer, but also lacrosse. I met with Reilly's head coach. Don't worry, I put a good word in for you, Reilly. But yeah, because soccer, if we play in the spring, a lot of soccer pitches share the same pitch with lacrosse. So you would see us playing competitively with women's lacrosse, men's lacrosse, and men's soccer on the exact same pitch, which would be a disaster. I also met with athletic directors, or I'll say exchanged emails with them, senior women administrators, the ACC commissioner, Jim Phillips in the top right, and also people that work within the ACC. And then I met with several support staff too, who would be impacted should this model pass. And I kind of picked their brains to kind of get a real understanding of the debate. So that's kind of a broader view of the research that I've done and what the 21st Century Model is. But to kind of get into the nitty-gritty aspects of it, there is a huge debate going on. Coach Sasho Trabowski from Maryland is the driving force behind the 21st Century Model. It is pretty much his life mission to play soccer in the fall and spring. You have Jack Swarbrick, who thinks the complete opposite, thinks we should absolutely stay in the fall. So what does this big Sasho here believe? He thinks that if we play in the fall and spring, we will only play 1 game a week rather than 2 games a week, which we're currently doing in just the fall. And his argument is that if we only play 1 game a week, It'll be safer for our bodies and we will see less injuries. He also believes only 1 game a week will limit the amount of class we miss if we have midweek games in the current model. And so academically we'll perform better. And he thinks that all of the student athletes want this model. He claims that 86% of student athletes or of soccer players signed a petition in spring of 2022 saying that they want the 21st century model. I push back against a lot of those points that he makes. That 86% figure that he references all the time was based on a petition signed, but only one side of the argument was presented to the student athletes. They were only told how great this model would be. They were not told the negative consequences. The academic argument that he makes, that he says that they're academically crushed in the fall. Of course, I pulled up teams' GPAs in the fall and the spring. And actually what you'll find is a lot of teams do better in the fall currently when they are in season, and it is structure. They kind of proactively have to be on top of things. And that's true of our Notre Dame soccer program. The Wake Forest head coach confirmed that to me. And I also checked UNC's GPAs, which was interesting. Jack Swarbrick believes that there is no worse time in college athletics for soccer to be demanding more resources. There's currently a bill in California which is requiring student athletes to become employees. So a lot of money would have to go to our American football and basketball players, and soccer would be essentially cut. He thinks we cannot make it easy for college soccer to be cut. We shouldn't be demanding more resources at this very fragile time. He also believes, like me and my team, that the springtime and being in the off season is crucial for students. Not everyone wants to play professional soccer. And so right now we have the springtime to be in the off season to pursue other diverse interests that we have to help set us up for success in the future. So conclusions and next steps. I conclude that this program should not and cannot pass. It will cause us a lot more harm than good. And it's scary when I put questions to supporters of the 21st century model, how vague their answers are when it just comes to simple logistics. They always reply with, we'll figure it out. They've had 5 to 10 years to figure it out, and we still don't have concrete answers. I very much want to continue to represent the SMAC minor and use the tools that I've learned here to educate and inform others. This is my teammate and I did a presentation on D1 ticker to kind of help raise awareness to the other side of the debate and the fact that this 21st century model shouldn't be passed. And we have to uphold the why of college in the first place. This is an educational vehicle designed to help students develop in all areas of their lives. This model will push against that. It will limit us to just soccer, which will be detrimental to the student and detrimental to our experience in college. So I definitely think this model cannot pass. And I hope to continue to send this report out to a lot of D1 athletes and coaches and the NCAA itself, so that if the vote comes, student athletes are very aware that there are two sides of this argument before they put pen to paper. Thank you.
Reilly, you want to come up for a second? And Kelly, one more round of applause. 2 minutes if you want to stand up, move around, get food, whatever, and also ask questions. Can we have a few questions for our capstone project folks? Yes, Ken.
So all three of you, really great job. I think Reilly, yours is one that just strikes right before. I've got a son who plays lacrosse and plays it on the West Coast, so it's a little different than the Northeast view, but truly an issue. My question for you is, what percent of the world of lacrosse thinks they have a problem?
Thinks they have a problem.
Because I think, you're not gonna get change until
Yeah, I
everyone's
think
kind of like going that same direction.
I think it's tough to like really put like an exact percentage, but I think everyone I've talked to, like, I don't think there's really anyone who can like have a real answer that's like genuine and legitimate that says there's not an issue. I think you go to any field, like I think 85% of all men's lacrosse players are white. That's not just white. So I think it's disingenuous to say that there's not a problem. I think everyone I talk to admits there is an issue. So yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of change that has to be happened, but yeah, I think basically virtually everyone, which I guess in a way is a good thing because people are more open and aware of it now. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Reilly, can you comment on Amy McEnany's City Lax program? I think he's doing it with PAC cabinet.
Yeah, so one of our like Pat Cavanaugh, he's been one of our best players now. He's a senior. He's in my class. For every ground ball he picks up, he's donating $10 to City Lax, which is to like serve, which is to help underserved communities. That's been a big thing. And he has a GoFundMe page that I can probably put up or send out. But yeah, a lot of people are matching him. And I think his goal is like 50,000. I think right now he's north of 3,000. So he's still got a lot of way to go. But yeah, it's just a sponsorship. Some of that Eamon McEnany helped set up. So yeah, it's been great.
I have a question for Patty. I'm just curious how you got in touch with Heather White. I went to high school with her.
Oh, really?
She was 3 years older than me, but I followed her from Ohio State over there. And she got the AD job.
Yeah, so one thing I found, like as soon as I started meeting with people, they were saying, oh, Paddy, you should meet with this person because they know more about this area than I do. And so I met with our senior woman administrator at Notre Dame, Missy Convoy. And so when I posed questions to her, she gave me great answers and she said, well, we should check this with Heather. And so Heather was one who I exchanged emails with just to clarify how the voting process works and what the ACC's position is as a conference. So it was through Missy Convoy that I got in touch with Heather through email.
Yeah.
So to this, my question is for Kelly. I can't see you. I'm wondering if you have any ideas about how sort of media representations of even golfers really across regions, whether that's within the US or different parts of the world. Has it been the same story? I know you charted a historical trajectory for us. What is the geographical spread of that?
Yeah, so in professional women's golf, we're definitely seeing a lot more international talent that's coming to play in the US. So while I didn't look at that specifically, from what I know, they definitely do get a lot more credit over on like in Asia on the Asian tours. And that's something that we're seeing start to be credited over here. But it's definitely, there's a lot more room to grow, which hopefully is something that can happen in the near future.
Yes.
I have a question for Patty. So this 20% model, would that be in terms of women's soccer and all or just men's soccer? And did you do any research?
Yeah, so a major part of my report is the women's soccer perspective, because I have the argument that women's soccer, they want to kind of adapt their season in some way. So they want to start the fall a little bit earlier so they have a longer preseason, but they are strongly against going to the fall and the spring for the reasons that I've mentioned. And so I met with the Notre Dame women's head coach, Nate Norman, who told me exactly why, but women's soccer are in a slightly different position to the men's soccer in that when you compare women's student athletes who are going to the pros and playing for the US national team, they're having a much greater impact than the men's soccer situation. So it is a slightly different situation, but what the women's soccer will do is if this model passes, they can have the unique position of sitting back and seeing if it works out, and if it works out, perhaps they'll hop on board. But within women's soccer, I think they've got their own kind of hot topic issues right now. They are looking to improve their fall season, but they are not looking to go fall and spring the same way men's soccer are. So it's interesting to kind of evaluate their position versus men's, but it's two different situations, but they don't have the same push for a 2-semester season that the men's team do right now.
It sort of underscores the structural the gender differences that are built into the structures of collegiate sports. Yes.
We have a problem in youth sports overall as people are going to one sport full year seasons. Lacrosse, soccer, and I'm assuming golf does the same. Are we setting our kids up just to play one sport all year long? It would influence these types of challenges.
Yeah, I think it's a problem. And I agree. And I was actually in California over Easter break with a teammate of mine, and his younger brother's 12 years old. And he told me that he has 5 training sessions for soccer a week from August through May. And when I thought about that, he's 11 years old, when I was 11, 12, like I had the chance to play soccer, Gaelic, hurling, 2 Irish sports. Like I was able to just completely diversify my interests and play other sports. And I think if college soccer sets a precedent of saying, right, we're committing you to all year round, again, it reinforces this narrative that your identity as a person is that you're a soccer player and that you're nothing else than that. And that can easily seep down below. And so, you know, high schools might do that same thing if we do, and club teams below high school might do the exact same thing. So college soccer does, like people look up to it, it sets a precedent. And so if we say that we want to play a competitive year-round model, it's basically saying that we value soccer players more than anything else, which we have to push back against, and that's what my project seeks to do.
Great. Okay, last one.
Along those lines, I had a question and a quick comment. So did you build in, you talked about in the same view, if it does get passed in the spring, with men's lacrosse, women's lacrosse, the fact that in most facilities you have to go to the field survey. And the fact that, if your concern is taking care of player health and wellness, soft tissue injuries as a result of playing on field turf as compared to natural grass. I don't know. Did you
Yeah,
take that
I
into
did. I wish I had an hour to present here to talk about everything. So it's a crucial point because when I met with Coach Corrigan, the lacrosse player, he mentioned a few things. One thing was that if the model passes, soccer will try and kick lacrosse off the field, he feels. And so you've got this rivalry then between lacrosse and soccer. Who gets this pitch at what times? The other aspect of it is because so many games have to be played on it in such a short space of time, it won't be able to withstand that. So you either will change the pitch from grass to turf, which increases the risk of injury significantly, and also, in my opinion, decreases the quality of soccer that can be played. Or a new facility will have to be built. And so that gets at the question of where is the money coming from for this new facility to be built? And if we don't have the money to build a new facility, will we just drop soccer altogether? And I think that's very probable at this point, particularly, at Notre Dame, we're facing these real questions and problems and we have soccer facilities and lacrosse facilities. So many schools don't have the resources that we have. And so it's going to be a massive uphill battle to see if they can actually provide both soccer and lacrosse. And I very much worry that soccer could be cut.
To Christina's point, and what you talked about, your friend's brother having 5 soccer sessions a week. I read a book earlier this year called Range by David Epstein. It was a fantastic read about diversification, expanding the range. He used the comparison between Tiger Woods and Roger Federer. Federer played everything, he didn't specialize in tennis. Tiger, on the other hand, muscle memory, 3 years old, 10,000 strokes a day. You saw excellence converge, at the same level. It was kind of like diversifying your experience, probably a better thing. It's kind of cool.
Well, let's have a final round. All right, well, I will do my best to make their capstones available on our website, or you can reach out to me or Patty if you want to find his report. I'm hoping that these capstones really do have a public impact, and we'll work towards that. I would like everyone just to stand up for a moment, and honestly, if you want a snack, get a snack, and then I would ask our alumni panelists to come forward. That's next on our program. A snack, Jimmy? Picture of your.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. The alumni can sit just for a few more minutes. We're gonna do one other thing first. Yes. Oh, they do? Yeah. Actually. I never stopped. Yeah. So to the library here. It's an excuse.
Really great.
I would just speak.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just stepping for my regional meeting. Yeah, do it in that day. I don't.
Hello.
We're about to go on. Are you ready?
Yeah, you're on my computer screen and I see you talking on the phone, so. And I muted myself, so
Can we
Have
get
the
your
stuff ready
picture
for you
as
to get
well, or
here.
not worried about that?
You're not waiting for
I don't know. I
the- We don't get.
I can start the video. Let's see. There I okay.
We don't know you. Part of gloves, found that actually gloves on, you don't have that kind of benefit, actually like in a river. So usually we just have, sometimes we have foam and the rest of the gloves. Really, it's just about letting us know if you want to come in and watch fun look at, and we're ready for you. Through the brief registration process, we have free lockers and bags, and so we try to make it as accessible as possible. Balance the need to preserve the material. Some people think we're gatekeepers, like, oh, you have to be the right person. That's not, we just have some of these techniques to make sure that the materials are fit for someone to see, because it's rare or fragile, you need. But whenever students come out, it's nice, use our stuff. We acquire.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
We failed. Librarians.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of value. Yeah, so you can send me an email. Some appointments.
Yeah.
I think, cards.
I'm gonna ask you to focus just, you don't have to come and sit, but if you could just share your attention with me. The next thing on our program is the Ed Farmer Scholarship. And I'm just so excited about this. The Ed Farmer Sports Media Endowment for Excellence is the very first fund that we got as a SMAC minor. And it happened like right when the SMAC minor was coming into existence. So it was just great. This endowment funds annual scholarships in honor of baseball pitcher and broadcaster Ed Farmer. Farmer had an 11-year career in the majors, pitching for 8 different teams, including his hometown White Sox. In 1991, he returned to the White Sox and worked as a radio broadcaster in different capacities for nearly 30 years until his death from kidney disease in April 2020. In his honor, Ed Farmer scholarships support SMAC students pursuing unpaid internships related to sports media. They may also support student research for a thesis or a major research project, piece of journalism, or a capstone project related to sports and media. Today, I am delighted to introduce 2 people integral to the establishment of the Ed Farmer Sports Media Endowment for Excellence and the Ed Farmer Scholarship. Bill Bennett is a kidney transplant specialist from Chicago's South Side. He describes himself as a lifelong White Sox fan and doctor and friend to Ed Farmer, whose passion was Notre Dame. Christina Reilly has been with the White Sox for 40 years, 9 of them as VP of Community Relations and Executive Director of Chicago White Sox Charities. She oversees the club's charitable donations to nonprofit and social service agencies. They've donated over $40 million to date. She's also deeply involved with the White Sox developing youth baseball in Chicago's under-resourced neighborhoods, and is overseeing more than $500,000 in annual funding for hundreds of underserved youth. I'm going to let both of them say a few words, but I also would like to acknowledge that this is our first Ed Farmer Scholarship winner, Jake Irons, who is a fitting recipient of this award. Uh-oh, now I've lost Bill. Sorry. Get it. Okay. Oh, okay, I'm gonna do this correctly, just a sec. Jake's a fitting recipient in many ways. He'll be broadcasting for the Hyannis Harbor Hawks of the Cape Cod Baseball League this summer. He also, I just realized yesterday, was the very first person to put his name on the interested student list after the SMAC website went live. So I would like first to give Dr. Bennett a few moments to say hello and share his thoughts.
Good morning or afternoon. I guess it's morning where I am, which is outside of Portland, Oregon, and Vancouver, Washington. Ed Farmer was a delightful, charitable man who grew up on the south side of Chicago and was a major league pitcher for 11 years, made an all-star team in, I believe, 1979. But our bond began when he had a kidney transplant, and I was one of the doctors that was able to look after him for about 25 years. His kidney transplant was a gift from his brother, and it lasted for a long, long time. He was a wonderful man. Everybody liked him. And he was interested in Notre Dame, even though he never attended Notre Dame. He had pennants on his wall. He borrowed the Heisman Trophy from Bo. And he made my life as a lifelong White Sox fan very, very interesting. Through him, I got to meet many, many people, and he indulged my passions. And so with his passing, I wanted to do something to promote his idea of the next generation of baseball and sports broadcasting and media. And so through his broadcast partner, Darren Jackson, I contacted the White Sox, and through Christine, we together made this award possible. Congratulations to Jake being the first recipient of this award. Hopefully many more will follow. And it's just delightful that I can be with you today. I'm very impressed by the capstone projects, and I know Ed would be extremely pleased with this ceremony for his beloved Notre Dame, even though he never went there. He was offered the baseball scholarship to Notre Dame, but because of financial exigencies, he turned pro instead. And but he never forgot his Notre Dame loyalty, and was not embarrassed about telling the coaches, football coaches, what they should do to have more winning teams.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bill. Christine, would you like to say?
Yes, thank you. I want to thank you, Annie, because Dr. Bennett called and generously wanted to create an homage to Ed, who's a beloved member of the White Sox family. And Ed grew up on the South Side, loved the White Sox, but I can't even begin to tell you, as Dr. Bennett said, his passion for Notre Dame was ridiculous. He also convinced everybody that you could drive from Chicago to South Bend to get to the campus in an hour. I found that I didn't drive as fast as Ed typically did, so I apologize. I came in a little late, but I'm absolutely thrilled I was here to hear the 3 capstone presentations. Really impressive. I'm so happy I got to hear that, so I commend you. But Jake, we are so thrilled. Of course, I Googled you. Of course, I saw many of your interviews. You're a shining star. I think somebody should do a capstone project on how talented students like you should get paid internships to be at the Cape Cod League. But I wanted to just, it's appropriate that I'm speaking after Dr. Bennett. Ed was a closer. So Dr. Bennett's lead gift, the White Sox closed out the gift to endow the scholarship in Ed's name. And so I know you're going to the Cape Cod League. I know you're from Connecticut. I'm not sure you have White Sox roots, but we wanted to get you a drink. We're also inviting Jake. He doesn't know this yet, but I'm hoping that before June 5th, when you head back east, you can come out and do a half an inning on the game. Darren Jackson, Ed's partner, is dying to meet you. So we are going to get you to Chicago, and it's a little rough to watch the team right now, but we are Notre Dame lucky charm. So
Anyway, thank
you
you.
so much.
Yeah,
Thank
wow. I'm so happy. All right, we're at the last most amazing thing, which is our All-Star Alumni Panel. So if I could ask the 4 of you to come up, we have a little bit of swag, water bottles for you. Our last set of short presentations will be from our alumni panel. I've got their names up there. I'm going to introduce them as they make their way up. I can't tell you how amazed I was as soon as word got out about the SMAC minor. I started fielding emails from alumni across the country asking how they could help. And so that's been one of my biggest challenges is figuring out how can alumni help? And there's lots of different ways. This is one way. So let me just do brief introductions as they make themselves comfortable. Ken Dice graduated from Notre Dame in 1987 and began an accidental journey into the world of advertising. Since then, he's worked for some great brands like McDonald's, Sony, and the Discovery Channel. But he's here today because his most recent roles were at Nike, where he led various marketing and business units, always with an eye on sport, culture, and consumers. Christina Glorioso has over 25 years of experience in marketing and sales in media, gaming, sports, and technology. She's worked for big companies like NBCU and Paramount and small companies, including a video game publisher and in sports at a talent agency. She's a double donor with a business degree in 95 and an MBA in 99. And during her MBA, she took classes in FTT with Karen Heisler and worked in the NBC Sports Production Truck. She serves on the Mendoza Dean's Advisory Council, the Media Entertainment Leadership Council, and is a former board member of the Monogram Club and the Alumni Association. Eugene T. Lee, Esquire, is also a proud double donor with a business degree in 95 and JD in 98. He's a longtime NFL agent, attorney, producer, CEO of Strand Sports and Entertainment, which is a management consulting and creative agency based out of Nashville, Tennessee. And he was so dogged asking how he could help that we let him teach. No, I just kidding. He developed a 1-credit course for us called Inside the NFL, which has been very popular. And I had the honor to attend the session last night. So that's exciting. I've also enjoyed being in contact with Betsy Ross, who earned her MA in communication from Notre Dame and is president of Game Day Communications, a Cincinnati-based sports and events public relations company. She was a sports anchor at ESPN for 5 years, continues to be involved in sports for the Fox station in Cincinnati and doing college basketball play-by-play. So today I asked them all to speak for about 5 minutes, reflecting on the industry and how they each think the SMAC minor and its graduates might be able to bring a new or useful perspective or set of skills to it. So I'll give them a chance to talk a little bit about what they do and how they see relationships between what they do and what we're doing here. So I guess we could just go in alphabetical order if that's fine. 5 minutes each, and then we'll have a few minutes for Q&A at the end. Ken, you want to lead off?
Oh my God. Yeah, I was gonna be, they were going Eugene, Ken. No. Hi, everybody. My name's Ken Dice. I have been in marketing and advertising for my entire career. I fell gracefully into that after leaving Notre Dame with a degree in econ and computers. Not sure how that happened, but what I loved about it was just the intersection of consumers and culture. And wherever I worked as a marketer, that was what we always tried to focus on, right? How a consumer and a brand intersected with culture. And I did it at a lot of places like Sony, which was about electronics and gaming and the joy of sight and sound, or Discovery Networks, which is about television and learning. But it wasn't until I got to Nike in 2007, where I really started to understand the power and the weight of how culture crosses with sport. And although Nike does a lot of things and we worked on a lot of efforts and projects, it always kept coming back to a simple belief that the entire organization at Nike had, and then I have since adopted, which is sport, truly does have the power to make the world a better place. And it's easy sometimes to pick on sport because sport has a lot of sometimes light that shines on the negatives. A couple of capstone projects were about that today, but it also has such a tremendous power to truly just make people better, and better people can therefore make a better world. So a lot of the work that I got to work on, especially in the last 10, 15 years or so, was really about finding that intersection of how sport and athletes start to intersect with culture and the people around the world. And when Annie called and talked to me about what the SMAC program was going to be about, I just thought that was so ripe and so ready for what the world of sport and today's modern athletes are starting to champion every single day. So I wanted to congratulate everyone in the room for being a part of that. And I guess Annie, for you and your cohorts for having the guts to start it, and happy to be here and be part of it in any way possible.
Very inspiring to me too. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the practical aspect of it. So I was a business undergrad major and always wanted to be in sports. I was a manager of the men's football team and then the men's lacrosse team. I played women's lacrosse, and before it was a Division I sport. And I loved the power of sport and bringing sport to all the people. But I grew up under the poverty line, so I did not have the means to go into sports after school. So I wrote resumes to hundreds and hundreds of teams and leagues, and was only told that I could intern for free, which I wasn't able to do. And so the practical aspect of getting a job, I wound up working in technology, and I did that for 3 years, and I loved my job. But what I realized is that I needed to follow my passion even more. And the longer I got into my career, the harder it would be to come away. So I went back to business school here at Notre Dame. I was going to go get my sport administration degree at UMass, but figured coming back to Notre Dame, I would be able to make a sport focus in an MBA track, which is what I did. And I worked in the NBC production truck, and that's when I worked with Karen and really learned a lot about media. And what was interesting to me at the time is, as comes and goes, there was a sports club in the business school, and there were 25, 30 people who would show up when we would have Ken Shanzer or Tommy Roy or someone come and speak to us. But when it came time to get a job, people would take, especially in the business school, the consulting job that was offered to them in October versus wait for just-in-time hiring, which is absolutely what sports and entertainment is about. So there were only 2 of us that waited to get a job and graduate business school without a job, and quickly got a job after that. But I did cold call my way into a sports agency. I worked in sports. We got acquired by a music company. I wound up producing music concerts. That company is now Live Nation, and then learned media from there. And when the music group asked me to come over, I said, why would I ever do that? I love sports, and I wasn't passionate about music. And I realized that it was people's leisure time. It was people's entertainment. It was people's passion. And interesting enough, Eugene can definitely understand this. Back in '95, when I was at the sports agency, I like to say they threw me all the crap sports, right? So the men worked with the teams and the Super Bowl, and I worked with Little League Baseball and women's soccer at the time, who hadn't won the World Cup. And I found out what passion of sport was about. So what I want to tell you is that you should follow your passions. And within 5 years, those of us who waited to get that job in sports were at the same level as our peers who went into consulting or banking, except we loved what we did every day. And I continue to love what I do every day. And one other thing, one other point I'll make from a career standpoint is keep in mind that there is function and industry. And I say that all the time because when people say sports, and when I wanted to get into sports, I didn't know what function I wanted to be in. I knew I wanted to be in the industry. But you don't have to be an athlete or work at a major league or team to be in sports. You could be an accountant or in finance or in marketing or a lawyer or in comms and get into sports. So think about your discipline. As your family says, what job are you going to take? Where are you going to go? How are you ever going to get a job in sports? Know that you can follow your, I guess, scholastic discipline and focus in the industry. And the better you are at your discipline, the better you'll be at your industry. I know it's only 5 minutes. I'm going to take one last sentence and say, from an industry perspective, I looked at all your classes that you're offering, and it's very interesting that people talk about sports television because sports is live as streaming grows. Streaming is all about binge watching, but I am proud to say that NBC has really been on the forefront of live sports in the streaming world. think about sports video broadcasting and not sports television. Because I think with Amazon coming in to take over Thursday Night Football, and frankly, when I watch the lacrosse games, it's like I subscribe to every small little streaming broadcaster so I could see every game that I want to see. But I think live sports, future, professional and otherwise, wherever your passions fall, is going to wind up being live on streaming. And so considering video versus television or digital is something that you need to think about for the future. Great. Eugene.
Well, I want to thank Professor Coleman, Annie, for having me here today and for giving me the opportunity to teach this class this spring semester. It's been a fantastic experience. And, you know, the one thing I can say about sport, and from my perspective, is that the beauty for me is that you have a collection, and I think Reilly touched on it about the lack of diversity in lacrosse, but teams and sports, you have different men and women from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different religions, walks of life, and they come together to compete, come together as one for a common goal. And they sacrifice, they sweat, they go through hard practices. They're there through the heartbreaking losses, they're there through the triumphs. And that beauty of these teammates coming together as one and brothers and sisters, that's the power of sport. You know, it's diversity, it's inclusion. It's about what this minor is about. And the other aspect about sports, which is why I love sports, is that it's a driver. I mean, if you're a professional athlete and you have a platform, and using the extreme example of LeBron James, you know, somebody with that type of a platform, you know, he opened up his charter school in Akron, Ohio. And it's a phenomenal platform that you have. And we have a client right now where he's doing everything he can. He understands the platform that he has and the obligation he has. And it was instilled in him by his parents, but that's another aspect of sport. You can do so much once you reach that level. And even as a college athlete at a Power 5 school, there's so many opportunities that you have to make a difference, to affect positive change. And that's the beauty of what we do. You know, my background, serendipitously, or, you know, in accordance with God's will, I met my first clients playing pickup basketball here while I was in law school at Notre Dame. And they had just opened up Rolf's. This is 97. I'm dating myself, I know. But it was the first year Rolf's was open. Became friends with some of the guys on the football team. I moved to New York City. I had already accepted a job offer with a big firm. Began practicing there for 4 years. And then decided over time, as I was doing this as my side hustle, that this was what I wanted to do. This is my passion. Now, the hard part is walking away from a stable paycheck. You know, that's the difficult part, but Christina touched on it. I mean, a lot of students, they equate success, postgraduate success, with the money they make. And I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. I'm with Notre Dame, like having the opportunity to make a difference, and the quality of your life is getting up every day, loving what you do, loving the people that you're dealing with, loving the clients you work for. That to me is how you become very wealthy in your postgraduate life. And, you know, the aspect of being selfless, having a heart, and I've learned it from this spring semester, having the opportunity to teach this class about the looks on students' faces, you know, the knowledge, the desire, the thirst for knowledge, the desire to learn. I mean, that's very, very impactful. And being able to give back. And the one thing that the takeaway I would give all of these students here today is that interns are in high demand, at least for me, because you bring a new perspective. It's 2023. I didn't grow up with an iPhone. I didn't grow up with social media, but new perspective, new energy. It's about adaptability. And if you are so closed-minded where you can't take in new perspectives, then you are going to be a dinosaur and you'll be out of business. And so we welcome interns, and we welcome them with an open, you know, everybody is equal. Give me your opinions. You know, as Jerry Angelo, my friend and mentor, the former GM of the Chicago Bears, said once, you can know more than me, but don't know better than me. And so that's kind of like how we approach it. But I'm just happy to be here. I would say, again, pursue what you want to do. You know, really seek to live selflessly, because it'll come back to you 100-fold. And there's a saying I like to use: you can't grasp or hold on to anything with a closed fist. It's about opening up your hand. And that's what it comes down to. So I want to thank you all for being here today.
Well, again, thank all of you for being here. Congratulations on your great work. I was one of the people who made sure that I emailed Annie as soon as I saw that this was going to be an opportunity here at Notre Dame, because I kept thinking, should I email her over Christmas? No, wait until January. So, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here and to speak a few months ago to your class. But I was one of these lucky kids that when I was in the 6th grade, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in journalism. I wanted to be a writer. Now, what form that was going to take, who knew? I mean, you didn't know. I knew I loved to write, and I knew that I loved sports. But back then, there were very few opportunities to put those two together, especially for a female. And so I leaned to the journalism side of it. But even when I was working at the South Bend Tribune newspaper, even when I was working with Channel 28 here in South Bend, I would walk across the hall and I would ask the sports director or sports editor, you need help? Do you need help? Well, of course, every sports office needs help. Then and now, they are always short-staffed. So they weren't going to turn it down. So that was the first opportunity that I had to actually cover sports, was with the South Bend Tribune. And they sent me out on Friday nights and Saturday nights, and I covered the high school games. I covered some Notre Dame games. So that was really my first opportunity. And I was telling this to somebody and they said, well, how much did they pay you? And I go, I don't think I got paid. I think it was just my, my regular paycheck. But what I got out of that in experience far outweighed any kind of extra pay that I would have made. So I always wanted to do that. But again, it was just hard for me to envision putting sports and journalism together because I didn't see anyone who looked like me at that particular time who was doing it. And I remember Saturday night going up to Comiskey Park, old Comiskey Park. And it was a White Sox game and they were playing Kansas City, and pre-game sitting there on first base side. And I saw the Kansas City broadcast team on the field doing their pre-game, and you see that all the time. And I was sitting there going, I'd like to do that someday. Now, where that came in my head, I have no idea. But I looked at that and I said, I want to do that someday. Well, there were no women doing pre-game anything, especially not on the field at that particular time. So now when I am on the field at a Cincinnati Reds game, I think about that girl who was going to graduate school here and had this wild idea I was going to be on the field. And it came true. So sometimes you just have to go across the hall and volunteer. Can I help you? Any way that you can get the experience that you want to get to where you want to go. Because when I was in the 6th grade, there was no ESPN, so I had no idea that that would be where I would end up. But, you talk about the culture part of this minor, and your capstone project certainly reflected that. But I think of all the horrible things that we went through during COVID, one thing was that we saw athletes really get into social justice for more reasons than one. And you saw the NBA and the WNBA, which is still having a moment because those players stood up. We have seen women's soccer stand up for equal pay. We have seen players in the NFL stand up for injustice. So that's where sports can make a difference, because athletes have this very unique audience that goes across all socioeconomic barriers, colors, races, backgrounds. Sports has this unique base and they have a unique audience, and athletes are now learning either through their words or through their social media that they can make a difference. And I'll leave you this one story, and I've told Annie this story. I was fortunate a few years ago to write a book about women who were making strides and breaking down barriers in men's sports. And the book was just getting ready to wrap up, and all of a sudden I find out that Billie Jean King is coming to Cincinnati for an award. How many barriers has she broken down? Continues to breathe. So I finagled my way and I met her down in the tunnel right before the game. They said, you got 5 minutes. I think I got 6.5. And so at the end of the interview, stuck out my hand to shake her hand. And I said, you've heard this 1,000 times, but I just want to thank you for everything that you have gone through and everything you have done to give me this opportunity to do what I want to do in sports. And she said, that's great. That's great. That's kind of the way she talks. That's great. But let me ask you something. How do they treat you here? How do they treat me? No one had ever asked me that. How do they treat me? So I gave her kind of a 15-second synopsis. I said, I've been working in the Cincinnati market for 20 years. I've grown up working with these guys. They know my work. They respect my work. And so, yes, they treat me very well. And she said, good. Pay it forward. Pass it on. And I think that is so indicative of what her life has been. But I think it's so indicative for what we are doing now. Whether you're a professor, where you're getting ready to graduate, pay it forward and pass it on. I always tell when I'm speaking to a group, especially like bankers or law firms, you know, it's nice to be the first partner, female partner in your law, but don't be the only one. Make sure that you have the wherewithal, the time to bring someone else up, because you don't want to be the only one who has done this. So I think it's beholden to all of us to make sure that the next generation has the opportunities we have had, because none of us have been able to do what we have been doing in a vacuum. There's always been somebody there to help. So, you know, it's a good lesson, I think, for all of us. Pay it forward and pass it on. Thank you again.
All right, I'm gonna ask for a show of hands. How many of you want a few minutes for Q&A? Or I could just let you, we could call it and just have conversations after the formal event is over. Who wants Q&A? Who wants informal? Nobody's answering. All right, so I know that we would have more questions. We could go on for hours. So I'm gonna bring the formal part to a close. We have the room for a while. Let me just do my little concluding remarks and say, let's take a moment to recognize our SMAC minors. Raise your hand if you're a SMAC minor. If you're in the new cohort of SMAC minors, please come up. I have a little bit of swag for you. Just as when I'm done, come on up. Please know we have our last event coming up soon, and it's open to everyone. It's a Zoom with Lou Blaustein, who's the founder of Eco Athletes. So he can help student athletes leverage their NIL work and support for local communities, care for our common home. You go to our events page, you can register for the Zoom link. Next week is also Notre Dame Day. SMAC has plans, big and small, that will benefit from support, so keep us in mind. And please eat the food and try and meet 2 new people before you go. Thank you again for coming.
There should be. Come up with one.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annie.
Annie, I apologize. I need to run.
Yes,
because at the other
I
meeting.
know. Thank you so much. for
Sure.
your time. Anyway, Ken and I have a table at 3.
Everyone's welcome.
Anyone wants to come by.
Can I, well, we linked it.
Probably. Get an idea.
Email?
Just thank you.
Yeah, so it's great. I, where are you now? Okay, so you do later. And you, how often do you?
In front of your sign.
I think we might have lost it.
And I did.
Yeah, Annie's got my email.
Yeah. I enjoy it. You know what? We'll get you. No worries. No worries. No worries. Yep. What do you want us?
Banner?
I don't know.
Banner.
Little SMAC branding in it.
Right. Coming up with the chair.
Good idea.
What's more on your side? What do you want? Why do you get the gap? Your deal. Here, help.
All right. You want a picture? You want a picture? I got one.
Yes, nice to meet you.
You're fine.
We'll be-
Yeah, please.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Good luck with everything. Yeah, I'm sure you got your hands all over this website.
I have little ones. So I have two.
All right, let's get into it.
But my 2 7-year-olds are playing track right now. My 4-year-old plays soccer. My 10-year-old plays football.
Senior.
Oh, yes. What is she gonna do?
Trying to decide between.
Wow.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
I am Ken.
So I guess what your part of that, you actually, I really, I'm a government technologist education guy, and I have my own nonprofit. But we're like the champions of the industry. And we were.
I said.
Basically, he's good product. So unless it's public school or private. And so the stuff is those are the that's how I got into this. I've been at it for 17 years now. We were just doing everything. We were doing but now
I was there.
we still do that, but we have to go on regular.
So that's for a while.
No, I was like,
It was
I
like
love
it
it because
literally.
you do believe in the character part of sport. But the problem is, I mean, it's like, let's say I believe in mathematics and reading, but if you can't make the
Yeah.
and if you're on the street, and I lost kids, I took kids. Here,
I did. He sent me out to cover high school.
I don't know.
You know, and it was great experience.
Thanks for coming.
Let me,
Yeah.
here sometime.
No, I
Oh.
was late.
Thank you for telling us.
I need to tell you one thing. We talked a lot about this.
Yes.
I
University of Pennsylvania.
I never felt like it.
No.
So being able to grow up in environment, in a tough environment, into and experience what happens today, or so there is a connection between your privilege.
Yes.
And grit and
Just kind of a game. So. But I really appreciate what you're doing. Thanks for coming. Talk to my neighbors.
When I literally started.
Yeah, I'm 10 days. All right. What are you doing?